Been talking about the Smithsonian is under attack. Lonnie Bunch just received a letter from Donald Trump last week saying all of the ways in which they're going to look at these museums. But before that, well, we have to be accountable for y'all. And by we in this moment, I mean all America. So really MAGA, y'all, this is y'all. Is how you are talking about the institutions that framed and founded this country. So there's a conversation recently that was held on a CNN show, and I want to go ahead and run the clip that was that took place on that show.
Have you looked at some of the things that are being reviewed?
Yeah, slavery was a bad thing that was to talk about.
Okay.
Like,
he's not whitewashing slavery.
So he's not?
He's not. No,
okay.
He's not. And you cannot tie imperialism and racism and slavery to just one race, which is pretty much what every single exhibit does. But let's talk about the fact that when you
anti-slavery,
let's talk about the fact
that slavery in America was.
Do you realize that only less than 2% of white Americans owned slaves?
But it was a system of white supremacy.
You realize that slavery is thousands of years old?
White people were
Do you know
the slave
who
owners.
was the first race to try to end slavery? Well, what's controversial?
I'm very surprised.
This is an extraordinary exercise in historical revisionism.
I'm really surprised.
Revisionism. Do you realize that?
Jillian, I'm surprised that you're trying to litigate who was the beneficiary of slavery and who was not.
What I'm trying to tell you is that
in the context of American history.
Okay.
In the context of American history, what are you saying is incorrect by saying that
it
was white people oppressing black people?
Every single thing is like, oh, no, this is all because white people bad. And that's just not the truth. Like, for example, every single exhibit, I have a list of every single one. Like, people migrated from Cuba because white people bad. Not because of Castro. Yes, no, it's in there. That's what I'm saying. You don't actually know what's in there.
So we're not going to litigate those points because they're not litigatable. What we are going to do now is play Nikole Hannah-Jones.
Who gave her license to do that?
Nikole Hannah-Jones' response. And we'll get to that shortly, Andrew Gillum. Let's play her response.
I do not usually do these videos, but as a creator of the 1619 Project and someone who has studied the history of slavery for 3 decades, I could not let that viral CNN clip of Jillian Michaels stand. I have to first state that the times are far too serious and dangerous for us to lend our platforms to harmful nonsense. It's simply irresponsible, with everything that's happening in this country, to have someone as credentialless as Jillian Michaels on a major network show legitimizing the erasure of our history. Now, I know there have been some viral efforts to debunk her claim that somehow slavery was a side institution in the United States because less than 2% of white people owned slaves. But even those efforts, while valiant, by embracing this right-wing framing, they still aren't really getting to it. You see, this is how numbers and data, though technically true, can also be lies. And this is why we can't let bad faith actors set the parameters of the debate or of our collective understanding. So please bear with me because this is a lot. Let's take the fewer than 2% of white people own slaves at face value, though we know that number is technically incorrect. And let's apply that standard to any other industry. What percentage of Americans own social media companies or technology companies such as Apple? It's a tiny percentage. I'm doubtful if it's even 1% of Americans. And yet no one would credibly argue that social media companies are not ubiquitous across American life, that they don't play a major influence on our political, social, and economic life in America. And in fact, what we know is that more than 70% of Americans use social media, though hardly any Americans own social media platform. There's a reason that the heads of Meta, Apple, and Amazon, Google, and X all took part in Trump's inauguration festivities, with several of them standing on the actual dais during Trump's inauguration.
So, you know, I think this is important to do because this is Nikole Hannah-Jones fact check. 5 days after Jillian Michaels is on the show, which gives ample time for any media outlet, really, to respond. Any media outlet, maybe it's not just Abby's response, right? Like maybe not. But after Nikole Hannah-Jones posts, Abby Phillips had this to say on her show on Tuesday night.
Last week on this show, a guest shocked the table by arguing in part that slavery in America can't just be blamed on one race, and that museums put too much focus on the role of white people who participated in that terrible institution. And now tonight, that same argument is being pushed by the President of the United States. Donald Trump says that one of the reasons for his crackdown on Smithsonian museums is, quote, everything discussed is how bad slavery was. What we try to do on this program is create a platform for discussion and debate that reflects the very real differences that exist in this country. It's what echo chambers in our society fail to do, frankly. But on this topic, it's important to say objectively, slavery was indeed bad.
Andrew, Tiff, do you want to answer whether or not you believe slavery was bad and whether or not in this day and age that should be litigated? We had Donald Trump's social post from Abby Screen. We can also put that up if you all need to read it. But he's very concerned with the fact that we're spending a lot of time on wokeism. That the Smithsonian is out of control, where everything discussed is how horrible our country is, how bad slavery was. And I'd love to know if you all have a silver lining like Bill O'Reilly about how we were fed and slept well in these times.
Honestly, I think it's such, it's so beneath our dignity to even engage that. I think to even debate it legitimizes their perspective, which is part of the danger. And listen, I feel very uncomfortable and awkward weighing in on this for a few reasons. One, I know Abby. I've known Abby for a long time, and I like her personally.
Yeah.
So I want to be, and I know you do too. I want to be careful. Like, I'm not trying to say this is all, like what Abby should have done, because I think this is network issue. Her show is not the only person who platforms problematic people. The network itself does. And because y'all are listening to some free blacks, listen, I'm going to give this truth, and you can invite me or not invite me on the network ever again. I think it is not courage if there is not a sacrifice. It is not valor if you don't have skin in the game. So I think all three of us ain't never been scared to speak an honest truth and let corporate media deal with it as you will. But we live in service to a higher truth, and one that does not engage in debate with low-life, half-witted individuals who do nothing but regurgitate talking points from the White House. And that is what Jillian Michaels, the biggest loser, is in this moment. I think it's incredibly frightening that she's raising a black child with that ignorant ass attitude. And I detest her. I detest people who look, who share her viewpoints. I detest the people who voted for this administration. I find them to be, I don't honor or respect their positions at all. And so to present some of these things as though it is a debate, to present this as though, well, she says, that slavery wasn't that bad. And she says that slavery was really bad. Now you guys have at it. I think that is a danger. And when I had a platform on a major cable news network, I was willing to risk it all before I would dare ever let somebody sit on my set and say something that was, one, disrespectful to another guest, or disrespectful to our history and our facts. That is the standard by which I hold myself. I'm not arrogant enough to say what choices somebody else should make, but I think to watch CNN, the place where I began my career, to watch them devolve into this Jerry Springer type atmosphere is disgusting. And then when we step back and look at journalism as an industry, how it has failed at the most important time. It has failed and continues to fail. We never want to acknowledge white supremacy. They talk about this immigration policy that is the brainchild of Stephen Miller, who is a white supremacist. It's not an opinion. It's rooted in reporting by the Wall Street Journal. It is widely known. You will never hear an anchor introduce or reference Stephen Miller as a white supremacist.
Right.
Why? For the comfort of white folks. And so many of these discussions that I know what we talk about when the cameras aren't on. But when the cameras come on, people want to get polite. People want to both sides things. I don't do that. It's only one version of Tiffany. And I can attest it's only one version of Angela. It's only one version of Andrew. What we speak, we mean. We walk it like we talk it. And so I just think we have to have a higher accountability of having those types of discussions in a way that presents a lie and equates it with a fact, that presents somebody with an opinion and equates them with an expert. I have sat on that very show across from people who were neither my intellectual equal nor my professional equal. on any level. And I just, we talked about this before, Angela, and a lot of the comments, thank you guys for weighing in, and I so appreciate everybody's thoughts. A lot of the comments, they were pretty mixed, Angela, and I am respecting your boundary, Angela, because you were clear on the last episode. I was trying to like politely push, and Angela was like, just so I'm clear, so we don't have to discuss this again, I am not going on that show unless all three of us go together. So I completely respect that boundary. Beyond respecting the boundary, I respect you for having that position and that boundary. There were people who are like, Tiffany, I love that you go on there, because if it's nonsense, at least you're somebody who's going to push back on that. I gotta say, I feel torn. I feel really torn. You reminded me, you said, because you said you would never do that show. You reminded me of that. And I remember getting so mad at you. I never told you this, but you dropped in our group chat, you guys, Tiff is on Happy. And I was like, don't tell people I'm on the show. That's how I felt inside. Don't tell our friends I'm doing this show. Because I did have some shame, but I feel before Abby had this show, I was so proud of her. I love her voice, and I just think she's so beautiful, and she has such a great spirit, and I'm cheering for her because we have too few Black women on air, and I fear if Abby goes away, then who will take her? It'll be somebody worse. Like, do we want Scott Jennings in that chair? So that's all my jumbled thoughts. Sorry for going on so long about it, but I don't know. I really want to hear from you guys,
because people, even when they comment clearly, they are torn. Like, if I have to choose between you going on or Candace Owens, duh. Right?
Yeah.
But I think that if we've crossed the red line, and you said the red line has been crossed 100 times. What is our boundary? I don't want to make this again about whether or not we go on the show. That is so besides the point. What I think is really at issue now is we have been reduced to the point of having a conversation about how the history of slavery will be told in our independent institutions, some that we help to fund, some that we help to build. McKissick was a key construction partner on the National Museum of African American History and Culture. We are now at the point where we are litigating the fact that white people are responsible for the institution of slavery, for the fact that white people are responsible for the transatlantic slave trade. I don't care if they were able to pick off a few Negroes. You all were able to do that in modern day times. That's how Clarence got on the Supreme Court. The hoochies are going to do what hoochies going to do. We have talked about this. So that we're fine. We understand that. What we're not fine with, what we don't understand, is why we even give audience to someone who would be so blatantly incorrect and gaslight us about the most traumatic incident in American history. The most traumatic for centuries. Like, what are we talking about? Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.